All right, here we are live. I am excited to share with you today something that I was just praying about and thinking about this morning. And I thought it'd be really interesting for you all to see something of how I look at Christian relationships. What is the impact of intimacy? So that'll be the title of today's short presentation. I wanted to pull out a whiteboard, give you some drawings, help you think about a couple of things. And let me just jump right in. To begin with, we're going to talk about you. And in this case, you're going to be this little circle right here, right? You want to be whole, you want to be complete, you want to be in integrity. This is the idea of an integer, kind of like the number one. And the more complete, the more in integrity you are, the greater joy, the greater alignment you feel, and the greater capacity you have to form relationships. And so let's talk first of all about another relationship. Again, if we think about this in the idea of geometry, and I love geometry, when you have a single point, it doesn't take up very much space, right? And so from the point, you need a second point to draw a line, and you expand the capacity for love and beauty to flow in the world. If it's just you, right, you can love yourself, and it's wonderful to feel that experience. But now let's imagine we take this idea of God that we have in Christianity, God being a trinity, this idea of a multiplicity of being in oneness. And the idea of love is a consistent growth in intimacy. And this is what God is experiencing. And yet, for some reason, he decides to relate to humanity. Now, we get to choose. Are we going to receive this relationship? And are we going to choose to relate back? There's this idea of receiving and of giving, of inspiration and expiration. This is the idea of the in-breath and the out-breath. This is also the idea of male and female, masculinity and femininity. There are two sides to this experience of relationships. And so now you see we have a line, and you see how much more capacity, how much more space is filled up by this. And that is the power of forming a relationship. Now, you've probably seen this before in Christian circles. Every time they talk about dating, they're like, you need to be in love with God. And the closer you move to God, we have another person over here. The closer they move to God, and actually, let me redraw this. I like a little bit of symmetry here. Right. So now we have three. And again, this is fascinating to me because we talk about God as Trinity, and now we're about to make another Trinity. We say the closer that this person moves to God, see how they're forming the same kind of connection, same kind of pattern. And we're going to actually invert this pattern and just pretend this is a relationship where the feminine aspect is more visible. And this is often, you can talk about this in biological terms. We all understand this idea of male and female, each one presenting a different aspect, particularly when it comes to sexuality. We learn so much if we actually dive in and seek to understand this mystery of sex. And we're going to actually go there in just a minute. But first, I want you to see one more thing. In between these two people now, as they come together, they may choose to form this relationship of giving and receiving, of inspiration and expiration. And I mean by that, like this idea of the breath. And so notice how much space now is taken up where there was formerly just one, right? Your focus is internal on unity, integrity, this idea of internal integrity and oneness, now being shared with two, now being shared with three. Look at how much more space we have here. Went from a point to a line to now we have a triangle, we have a whole shape. And I actually want to take us a little bit beyond, because a lot of times we get stuck just thinking about, oh, the relationship between us two. We're really excited about that, and that bond is really incredible. And I also want to challenge our thinking before we move into this final point that this is not just your romantic relationship. This is any kind of relationship. We have this reference in Proverbs, I believe, about this idea of a threefold cord. Something how when there are more than two, when there are three, there's in fact an even stronger bond. And so let's look at what can happen though, because once we have this is the foundation for something. This is the mystery of sex, that this form of interaction between human bodies, human spirits, human minds, this coming together in oneness can produce. We all know that when a man and a woman come together, it is possible to create a child. That is the power of the sexual expression that is embedded within our humanity. And so let's just pretend this is a child, or it may not even be a child. This may be an idea. This may be a business. This may be an organization or a ministry. This is something that is created out of the coming together of these three parts. And remember, again, you can't have this whole space created for this to be born to emerge when you just have the one. You need all three of these points. But here's what's absolutely fascinating to me. As we begin to invest into this piece, it also influences us. And the moment we add this additional dynamic, that we choose to create something, to express something from the relationship, we've now moved beyond a two-dimensional experience into a three-dimensional experience. Like, as you know, this particular shape is no longer flat on a page. This is a 3D object, and the amount of space this holds is cubic, right? Flat, you just have this. Now we begin to expand. Look at how much more capacity is within this relationship. And this is the power of relationship, is that it increases the capacity for powerful interactions in the world. So take a look at this. I'm gonna label a couple of more things here. So when we talk about this, we use this example of God, and this idea of God as spirit. God doesn't have physical form the same way that human beings do. Mystery of Jesus aside, we can talk about that later. And then we have this person who's representing the masculine energy, and this is often symbolized by this idea of mind, or the logos, or the word, the ordering principle, this idea of structure and form. And then you have here the mystery of femininity, which has a lot to do with the body and actual motive force and power, that which fills. And so you have these three dimensions. These are all fascinating enough a reflection of our internal experience of ourselves. We are spirit, we are mind, we are body, and we are more than that. We are also the connections we create in the world around us. And so when we look at all of these lines of relationship, I'm wishing I had drawn them in green or something, because this is where relationship happens. This is the mystery of relationship. And look how by simply looking outside of oneself, outside of one's relationship, to create something new, to give of yourself, to pour it in, it instantly doubles the number of connections and also multiplies the ability for impact. So we have one more thing to observe. And so what we could probably call this center point is this idea of relationship or creation. And when it comes to sex, this is where children, new human beings, are made absolutely incredibly powerful. And this is why the mystery of sex and relationships are so wrapped up together for us, because it's meant to teach us something about our capacity of coming together. Here's where we move into the idea of intimacy. What is intimacy? And I'm going to talk about it as this idea of oneness, as this idea of moving closer between these parts. And when we think about it, let's imagine this is filled with air or water. You start off, these things are far apart, right? They form some kind of connection. But now as time goes on, we're going to be moving closer and closer together. And now those particles, that water, that air, whatever is inside of that is being compressed and compressed and squeezed and tightened. And this is the pressure. This is the challenge of relationship. This is the challenge of oneness, is that all of this stuff that we had out here, it's not bumping into each other. The closer we get, the more of an overlap we have, the more unity that we achieve, the tighter all these things are. And if we then fight with each other and push apart, we move the opposite direction of intimacy. We again expand. And here's the thing that's fascinating to me, why I wanted to share this, is because when we come together in intimacy, the more close together we come, the more intimacy we experience. Imagining all of that pressure being built up inside the relationship, the strength of these bonds can hold so much capacity inside that if we're just talking mechanics, just talking physics, we compress all that water, you can shoot that water out with such force that it can cut through metal. This is why there's so much power inside of relationship, inside of community. This is the mystery that we've been dancing around. I just wanted to draw it out because I really liked how this model appeared. And I may try it one more time. Total of 11-minute presentation. But yeah, I hope you're as excited about this as I am. Just happy to share with you about some new revelations I'm having on the subject and invite you into the process with me. Thanks for watching.